Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, we're going to take a peek at this juniper over here that I got at a recent auction from the Minnesota Bonsai Society. The only trouble about this tree is I still don't know exactly what kind of juniper it is. So the previous owner told me that he doesn't think it's a Shimpaku juniper. Though when I first looked at it, that's the first thing I thought it was. But I'm still not really great at tree identification as I'd like to be. But he doesn't think it's a Shimpaku, but he thought it might be a Sabina Juniper. He looked back at his records and he didn't have notes to really concretely tell me which one it was. So I'm gonna have to peek around. If anybody knows what this is just from this video, let me know. Shimpaku, Sabina, another kind of juniper. It's got the real fine, small needles, foliage. And this is a cutting that he got from a workshop about 2 or 3 years ago. And he's had it in a nursery pot for this whole time, and it just took off on him. It did really, really well. So one of the things I asked him is, his opinion then on cuttings and how much success he's had with junipers, because I've not done any juniper cuttings yet. I've done more of my tropicals. And so this one is huge, and we're gonna have to trim it back a little bit because it's just a little bit too big for probably the pots that I'm gonna have for it right now. And we're just gonna get rid of some of the mass foliage and just, put it into shape just a little bit here as we make this tree and get into a bonsai pot. So I'm gonna keep some of the cuttings from this tree and we're gonna go ahead and try to plant those, and we'll keep you updated on how that happens. So I'm gonna be saving a lot of my cuttings today and trying that. So the Minnesota Bonsai Society member that talked to me said that, he's had success with juniper cuttings, that is, all different times of the year. So it is March, I'm going to repot, I'm going to be cutting some branches, I'm going to give it a try. It'll be my first test with junipers, and we'll see if we can get some new trees out of some cuttings. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. We try to get rid of those air pockets. So there's a close-up of the foliage for you. That helps anybody with identification. Again, similar foliage to my Shimpaku juniper. So the trouble I had with this tree was this very small, lightweight pot, and look at this growth. Okay, look at this nice, curly, gnarly trunk going up here and up around here. It's a pretty tall tree. I have to stand back to get this all in frame for you. Look at all that mass. And if there's any wind outside, this thing was tumbling over every single day. So I need a bigger pot, a little bit bigger, that can hold a little bit more gravel, which can maybe give it some more weight, or I can put a couple rocks in there as well. Or I'm gonna have to find one of my heavier pots. I have a few things in mind, we'll get to that later. But first I have to decide, what am I gonna do with this tree? We always talk about the front of a tree. And if you go to a nursery store, you're gonna be looking for the nabari of the tree, the branches on the tree, and how it all moves, how it moves you. And this is a really nice, consistently thick trunk all the way up here. There's not a ton of taper in here. So my biggest concern at first looking at this tree, and I went back several times, and I was able to get a nice price on this. At our auctions, we can get a lot of great deals. And so not a lot of people were scarfing this one up with their bids, so I got this one for pretty inexpensive. I don't even know if I paid 15 for this tree. It was more like 12. I can handle that. Got a Japanese maple leaf in there. Oh my goodness. So I don't know what this is going to look like, but right off the bat, I can look at the bottom, the nabari part, and I can see I've got this root that flares off right here. And I've got this other root down here that kind of flares right there. Now that's kind of an interesting angle, right? And it's going to the left naturally. Probably not going to have this as our front because again, those roots are sticking right out at us. Oops, and there goes the tipping tree. What did I tell you? If we go this way, it's leaning awfully forward, but we may be able to bend the pot this way, when I repot it, and see what we think about that. And that has some interesting structure. So look at this right here, and then it comes over here for a primary branch possibly, and then this keeps going up for our apex and leader, and then who knows how long I'll keep that up there. This backside could also be a new front side, not sure. And then you got this angle, everything's coming right out at me, kind of messy. Oh my gosh, don't know what that's going to be all about. So I'm going to have to really dig into this tree, expose more of the roots, see what it's looking like, and then put it in a couple of pots and maybe decide then. I really can't decide right now until I really see what's going to happen down here. So let me set up some shop here and we can start digging into the roots and checking it out. Here we go. Oh yeah, that was a breeze. Not much work there. Time to take this apart. So again, I believe it was 2 to 3 years in this pot. And we're going to gently rake out its roots. And we're going to see what is going on with this juniper. Feels a little on the dry side. I was out in my cold frame. Probably watered it within the last 2 weeks for sure, possibly the last week. This thing's pretty tight in here. I think all these roots growing and wrapping around have created a nice tight compact root base. Now we're getting some of those bonsai soil chunks out of there. It's a very top-heavy tree. It's why the tree fall. The reason the tree fell a lot in this weak pot is, yeah, it's a lightweight pot, and it's also very top-heavy. The tree is tall. It's a pretty thick trunk for a young cutting. And so that combination with a little bit of wind, it was deadly. So I had it propped up against walls quite often last year. So if the wind blew out of the northwest, it would blow it into my wall until I was able to put it in a place where I could keep it upright more. One of the fun parts about repotting a bonsai tree, I've mentioned this several times before, when you get a tree from someone at an auction, or whether you just buy one from someone who sells one at a club, or even if you get, well, especially if you get one at the nursery store, you don't know what it's going to look like underneath. And you hope, of course, that it's healthy. You hope that you got a good root structure. But you really don't know. And you have no idea what that nabari truly would look like. So we saw what we saw in the pot and not much below that. And now we're going to get a much better glimpse of what this tree is going to be able to do with us, for us, in conjunction with our efforts. There we have great big tree, and now we've got it down to a workable root structure that I can probably start looking at pots. So let me dig out a couple of pots and we'll look at our choices. My first option is one of my plastic pots, 8x6. And with the root structure the way it is, fits in there really nice. I can get that in there, I can wire that down, and it's going to be good. This is a wider pot that won't blow down as easy in the wind as the nursery pot that was probably about 2/3 this size with a round bottom, so it just didn't have a lot to protect it from going left and right. So We have a decision to make though because of our root structure. And again, if you remember correctly, when we first started, we have this root structure over here that has this flare out here. If we turn it around to the back here, got that flare off to the left a little bit there, right here. And it goes that way. We can see the tree and how it may look. This gives us a lot more vision of all the trunk action. This comes up, curves that back here, goes back over here. And then this one up here though is maybe just too much in our face. We have nice movement. But this one we might have to get rid of, at least this branch right here. But maybe this whole thing right here. So we have this nice curve here, and then this becomes our major branch off to the left. We cut this one up off here, and then we do some searching up here through the rest of the tree. This is one of those trees where we could wire it in and we can do front or front. Now, this front has all this stuff coming out at us, but we can shorten it up and move it. This is going up here. But this stuff here is blocking all that beautiful movement. So I'm really liking this angle. That's this pot. Let's change pots. My Chinese elm was in this octagonal tank. And look at that, how nice that fits in there. Plenty of room to grow, maybe a little deep. But that would be really a nice pot. Look at the shape on that pot with all of this wild tall growth up here. So the way it looks right now, this really fits better. And this pot is much heavier. This is not plastic, this is a ceramic pot. So pulling back with the close-up camera, if I can kind of hold it up here with a branch, you got this big beautiful tree now in that great big pot. Look at how it fills that pot, just fills it up a lot better. That plastic one just seems too small. Now I might be cutting a whole couple of inches off of here or even more. So then this pot might be a little big in the end. I have to be careful about that. So there's the really good side where I can see all that movement from the trunk. But then if I turn it around the other way, you can't really see. Whoops, sorry about that. So there's kind of the other angle. And again, a lot of stuff in our way. So I'm going to have to ponder this a little bit more. Let me take a peek at it and we'll come back with a decision. I have made my choice. I'm going to go with the hexagonal shape here. And I got to get some wire in there to hold it down so the wind doesn't want to knock it down, but this heavy pot's going to do really well. Sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, that my camera was on time-lapse mode. So I did a whole bunch of work and I'm gonna have to go back in the editing process and see how much I did not show you. But maybe the time-lapse is pretty cool. So I chose this pot. I put it in with this as my front, and I got the bigger soil in the bottom, the medium soil on the top. We've gone ahead and done our shaking of our rocks, and we have a bonsai tree ready to do some initial trimming. Now it's time to figure out how much we're going to cut off of our juniper. We cut about 1/3 to 1/2 of the roots off by my estimations. Probably 1/2. And we're not going to destroy the top by 1/2, but we are going to cut some off and get a little bit shorter and get it ready for this spring push that's coming here in just a matter of weeks. So what I'm going to do is spin this thing around a little bit, take a peek at it, try to figure out what I want to do with it. And it's kind of a not so attractive side view. This back, which could have been a front, I'm sure glad I didn't choose that as the front, because I think I like it this way much better. We have to do some cutting on here. So with our front right here, I decided, because I twisted a little bit more, we're going to leave this on right here. I probably can even leave this one on right here. This would be the one I would take off to get it off of the front and keep our eye away from that and watch the flow of this nice back branch, which could back around here. This one right here, though, has to come off. We got this one growing down here. Whoop. I'm still a little top heavy with my spinner, actually. This guy right here is growing left. We want that one to grow strong as possibly a future primary first branch if we take this one off. This is going to help thicken this trunk right here. So I want to make sure I'm getting, you know, thinner and thinner. We don't want reverse taper. But this guy is going to come off. So this is my proposed front right here. Tree's going off this way. Got my little bit of exposed trunk right there. It's all moving this way. Now we got to take a little bit of the foliage off. And remember, I'm going to keep all this foliage for some potential cuttings that will grow to future trees. This is right in the middle of my trunk. I don't want it in the middle of my trunk anymore. I'm going to cut this one right off. Nice gnarly trunk. And this will heal and you won't even know it was there. So how about that for a cutting? We already have a tree like that. Look at that little sapling, huh? We'll cut off couple more of these branches here. We'll sink it down into the dirt a good couple of inches. We'll get some rooting powder on here, and we might have a new tree within a couple of years, right? A new pre-bonsai. So we'll put that there. Now I have this nice path up here. I got to decide what to do with this. We want this to get really thick. So for this to get really thick, we need a lot of foliage. There is a lot of discussion out there, it seems, that, you know, people want this really long branch to create thickness, but it's not so much the branch length, but all the foliage on here. So I got this great big leader taking up all the energy here, probably by what my knowledge is about how the energy is shared through the branch. This wants to reach up to the sun, get all this more oxen at the tip than down here, although this has the most oxen. But if I cut this right here, this will thicken up all of this and create more energy down here, and this could all become thicker to make this thicker. And because it's a little bit too big and disproportionate, I'm just going to go ahead and find a spot where I can cut it. And I'm going to go with the fact that one of these branches back here will push that way instead of towards the front. And so that decision, harder to see on the camera for you guys. I got a pretty strong branch that's growing this way. And the next one, yeah, they're all pretty thin up there. But if I just go ahead and try to cut this one right here. Now this one's just not quite as long and leggy looking. And where I split that, maybe it'll get two more and we'll have some growth here. I'm going to go ahead and take off this bottom one because we don't ever want bottom branches. Too small for a cutting, but this will be a cutting. So if I go ahead and peel these bottom layers off, pinch them off, because I don't want too much foliage on my cuttings. And now there's another cutting that we can put down there, and I've got a couple of branches maybe growing on that one. So we took care of that. For right now, that's all I care about. I want to make sure this thing survives this spring and grows like crazy. New tree to me. We're just going to leave that right here. We just cut a little bit of that off. But now I got this big old honking tree up here, everybody. And as I pull back these branches here, you can see. You can't even see the top of the tree up here. It keeps going. Yeah. Yeah. So we got this nice big curve back here, and then it goes all the way up here, and then we just don't see all that because of this guy right here too. So this guy could become the new leader, and we could cut this tree way back here. A hard prune right there, and then this just curls up over here and then comes up right here. And then this could be our new leader. When there's a split right there. I don't know if I'm ready to make that big of a cut on this tree right now. But I do not like the branch that's behind it and going straight towards it, so I'm going to cut that one off. So it was back here. I'm going to cut that off, and there's another cutting. We'll see if we can get that one growing. 3 cuttings so far. Now I have two branches still growing here. This one's kind of at a weird junction. We can't really see it that much, it's hidden. If we took this branch away, I don't even know if you'd notice that much of a difference. That might make another nice cutting. But then if I cut this one, I have a long distance between this branch and this branch. These two branches are pretty far away. But I still have to decide how far back I want to cut this big guy to make it a smaller tree. And it's still a tough decision right now. This branch down here now, super big and strong coming up towards the front here. Right, this guy right here. This is super big. We don't need the length of that branch anymore either. And if I were to go back and cut it right here, I have a nice curve down here and then it comes back towards me. This is in the back of the tree now. And again, this can be back here. We got a branch cut down here that we don't want one going straight down like that. I'm going to cut that off back here, and there's yet another cutting. So good size for cutting. I think these are going to be good. They're not pencil thickness, but they're not super, super tiny. So there is another cutting that we will try to grow a tree. This also could become a cutting. It's super thick. I can either split these in half and try have two cuttings. It might be a little bit too thick on the bottom here to make a, this is probably too thick. This is all going to be underground. So my thought is to take this split right there, and now I'll stick this underground. This is the thickest one so far that I would try to grow. It's got some branching up here already. I would thin that out, but there now I've got another possible cutting right there. And this I could try as a cutting as well. It's split right there. I've got some distance there that I can just bury and hope that we get some growth there. So I'm going to try a whole bunch of cuttings. Always try multiple and hope you get a lot of success. So that made this tree a little bit shorter. What blocks the view is this branch right here. So this would either have to become the tree someday. I've got a knob back here. That might have been a cutting one day. Makes it look like it's some reverse taper almost. And that's the problem with this section back here in the tree right here. It's very thick right here. After it's kind of thinner here, we almost have reverse taper. We may need to get rid of this whole thing back here someday. And then this could become the leader. So I still want to kind of leave that one on. If I look in the back, this bottom one I don't need. Another cutting. As you can see behind my hand, I've got this main branch here in the front, this one in the back. They're from the same spot. That will create some swelling. I don't want that branch there. That one's gone. This is a really tall cutting, but that might work as well. So as you can see, I'm losing a lot of life to this tree. I don't want to cut it completely all off, but I do want to make a couple of more cuts before we wrap this thing up. This one just seems too thick out here. I think I'm just going to cut this one off. Nah, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait with this one just a little bit. But I don't have to keep it quite this tall, so I can make it, I can cut off here for some size. This could become a new leader. As it bends and curves around, these two branches can fight for some strength, and we'll just leave that for now. And again, I have some material for yet another cutting. This one has some interesting branch structure already on it. If it were to survive, that would be phenomenal, and we can get a really nice cutting from this one. So I'll put that there. We have cut into this tree and made it a little bit shorter, but not enough yet. Got a little bit more to do. Again, this is a repot, new tree to me. I want to make sure it grows this season, so I'm not going to do too much damage to it. But I do have some more things I want to do to this back side because it's just too clunky up top here, real thick. We have to get rid of some of this thickness right in here. These branches right here. We got 1, 2, 3, and one back here, 4 branches. That's never going to be good long term, so we have to find which one of those we can cut off. So As it curves, we got nice movement to the back, but that's the thick one. This would be thin to thinner if we keep this one. So let's cut that one off. So we'll get you a nice close-up of this cut right here. And I'll cut it off back here first and then come back and clean it up. So there we have another cutting. We'll see if that one will take off. That one's pretty thick, but we'll peel some of that bottom stuff off and see if that works. So that thinned out up here, nice already. And if I'm going to keep one of these as my leader, this one right here, this is towards the front of the tree, this is towards the back. If I cut this, it might be a little bit of an eyesore. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the back one off. And there's another cutting. Pinch off some of the lower stuff, and we got a cutting there. So my tree is looking a little bit closer to the final product. This is still too big back here, but I'm going to worry about that later. I'm going to see what happens this summer with some growth. I can clean off this little crotch growth here. I don't want that. This is some dead branches up here. We're going to see what this does this summer. And then up here, I've got some scraggly stuff. Again, if I look at just the structure of this, not too bad, not any one area where there's a whole bunch of things growing out. But I got 2 branches right here, 3 branches in a row, boom, boom, boom. If I were to go every other on this branch, I would cut off this one right here. And that does clog up the front view. So as I cut that one off to make yet another cutting, that just makes my view a little bit cleaner. Got a couple branches back here. This can come curving back over here. This can go back this way. They are pretty close to this one right here. Will this one keep going this way? Again, this could become a new leader someday, right here. Depends upon what I decide to do, because right now it's in the way. Right now, if you could imagine it gone, it would look a little bit more like this. And that looks like a lot better tree to me. If I could bend it this way, then I've got this one competing against this thick one doesn't really make sense. But if I cut that big one off back here, then this becomes the leader, and then it curves up, and then it does go thick to thinner to really thin all of a sudden there, but that would get thicker over time. So you can't see the pot anymore. I thought I'd lower it though for you. You're going to see much better. All this, what is it going to do? So there were four branches back here. I cut 2 of them off. One that was growing up this way and one that was growing back this way. So now I just have these 2. Again, I'm going to leave them there for now. I got this tip up here that's real thick. I don't know if it knows what it wants to do, but I'll tell you this move right here. So I've got this branch right here that's nice and solid, and I got this real thick stuff up here. So I can either cut off one of these 2 sides up here, left and right, and I don't need this one and I don't need this one. These are little shoots in between here. And if this is growing up this way and then wants to curve back that way, why don't I just go ahead and make that decision right now? This might be too small for a cutting, but now this has got some movement here, curves over here, then goes this way, and this is the new leader. And then this one will be just a branch off to the side, and I'll just again see what happens this summer. You can see from the back now that this looks a little sloppy with those cuts, but again, with time and healing, we're not going to see these scars as much. And what's nice about that is that it's in the back right now. So there's our tree. And again, keep in mind, I'm still really torn about this one. I don't want to cut this one off because then I can't keep it as a leader someday if I decide to come back. But if I had that as a leader right now, I'd have this branch here, this big branch here, and this. And it wouldn't look, maybe that's the guts I have to get. But I'm not going to do that because that's too much for me to cut on this new tree for me to feel comfortable. I'll wait. I could do that next year. I could certainly do that at a different time. So for right now, my tree is, I think, where it's going to stay for the time being. Every time I turn off my camera, I find a couple little things I might pluck away. Like in here, some of this crotch growth. We're not going to leave all that in here right now because it detracts from the trunk of the tree, the style of the tree. So right here, right there, we don't need that right now. We'll probably get new growth this year in those spots, likely this year. So we almost have every other pattern back there on the back side. Got another big branch back here. There's another possible cut for me. So I've been saying that I could make this the leader and then cut this big back here, but I could cut this right here and make this curve up here and then go this way and come back up and go up like it is right now to the top. That would be a nice cut because that would make it thicker to thinner, and then this would be the thinnest right here, but then this one would be too tall, so I might have to cut it back. But that's another possibility with this tree. This one is a little bit long. This is right in your face here, but that's better, huh? You can see it. So this one's a little long. It's what I was just talking about, but see, it goes this side over here and this side over here. If I cut this right here, now this becomes my leader right here. There's my leader on this branch, and I only cut off about an inch or two of this really tall one, and now that's just a little bit more subdued. This one in the front I'm just going to cut off. We don't need it that tall, and it'll do some. I got a nice couple of splits here, lots of branches here. We don't need them all. We can do some putzing with that because that is still wanting to be up there tall and in the way. So again, if this comes over here, get rid of that. All this probably isn't needed. I'm just not pulling the trigger right now. I'm afraid to pull the trigger right now. And I see I got these three, one back here, one here, and one here. These are all kind of clumping together and this kind of looks sloppy. But if this one could grow this way with some wiring, or this one grow this way, but that doesn't really look natural with that curve of that tree. So my first instinct is to cut this little one right here. And I did. And another cutting. I'm getting closer and closer to cutting this one off. It's making it work. Making it work without it. There it is without it. The tree looks pretty nice, doesn't it? That looks okay. And that's in my way. But then I have a nice big gap here with no leaves, no tree, or no branches. I don't know if I want that or not. There's one back here that's small, like I said. So what I don't like about the tree right now is that right there with all these on this side and these on this side. It's just like really flat right here. So I just want to get rid of a couple of those so it doesn't look so, you know, boom, 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 boom tree. Boom, 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 boom limbs. So I want to get rid of a couple of these, and I just don't know which ones to get rid of. But I like this one down here, but it's kind of close to this one back here, which means this could become a bulging situation. So if I were to go to every other pattern, I probably should get rid of this one. So I can start here and go here, 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 and get rid of these two and that one. Time to do some thinking. I'll put it back up here for you. I think I may have to call it quits for today. And I think I'll just give this some water, and we'll put this back in the cold frame for a couple of weeks or a week or so, because the weather is just really trying to stay warm. Soon lows at night will not even be in the freezing area. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this some water. I'm going to run out of water here. Yeah, there's water draining from the bottom. We can give it a little bit more water. That'll be it for this episode. We can take a little peek at this. Might have to sleep on this one a little bit, and we can come back to it at any time. Well, not any time. I shouldn't say that. I'd like to be done now for the spring and summer. Just let it do its thing, and I can cut it back some more next season for sure. For Dave's Bonsai, I'm Dave Weiss. Click on the bottom. Any questions? Right now, though, before we leave for good, I have an update with my Japanese quince. I thought I'd show you all the beautiful buds before we say goodbye today. So we will see you on the next one. Enjoy the quince, and then we'll come back for a before and after shot. All right, we'll catch you on the next one, everybody. Welcome back, everyone. Quick look at my quince, an update for you. I repotted the big quince and have those still out in the cold frame. But inside the plant room, I did bring this one in, and because the growth was getting kind of long. And it's loving life with all the blooms. This is kind of the, I think, original front of the tree. All the flowers kind of point in other directions, but very nice. Got this really long, leggy growth, trying to reach up to my plant room lights. But nice to see spring growth and flowers and buds. Welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. We try and get rid of those air pockets.